This is All Out Politics, news, debate and opinion from the heart of Westminster. Young people who weren't old enough to vote in the Brexit referendum are amongst those calling for a second vote, which will give them the chance to have their say on an issue which will undoubtedly have a huge impact on the rest of their lives. And if you were to think the young were exclusively Remainers, you'd be mistaken. Joining me now are Laura Spirit, co-founder of Our Future, Our Choice, which is campaigning for the People's Vote, and Jack Powell, who's a founder and editor of the neoliberal opinion website 1828. Welcome to you both. Do you feel you weren't listened to in the Brexit campaign, or should you have a right now to express your opinions?
I feel I was listened to. My views were represented by people during the campaign. Whether or not you voted Remain or Leave, there were two campaigns that fought fearlessly for their preferred outcome. I voted Leave. I wanted to leave the European Union so that we could have an independent trade policy, so that the decisions that are taken in this country that impact all of our lives are taken by representatives we elect and we can eject from office. And I think no matter whether you voted Remain or Leave, your opinions were taken into account. I think in this country, we hold a vote, we have a debate, and we implement the result of that.
What's wrong with that?
Well, I think you hold the vote and you have the debate, but I think after that, you're not bound to stop having that debate. And I think it's very important that we do continue to have that debate. And I think, yes, you and I did have the vote in that referendum, but 2 million young people didn't. And of those, they back Remain by an even greater margin. And recent polling has shown that even more young people now do back Remain. I think it's very, very important and quite damaging to our democracy if we suggest that those people can't continue to have their say on an issue which is going to affect them hugely.
But why should they have a second go, as it were?
But it's not a second go for so many of them. And as we know, this is a different question. This is a different issue. The things that Jack voted for in 2016 are not going to be delivered. He knows that. And so I think when we know now that it's not going to be possible to deliver on the promises, we know now that this deal is, or any deal, is not going to be better than the deal we currently have inside the EU. And we know that this is just imposing another cliff edge, another way in which we're kicking the can down the road and we don't know what we're going to get.
You don't know what you're going to get, do you?
Well, I didn't vote in the 2015 general election, but I voted in the 2017 general election. I voted in the referendum. If you're below 18, you don't get a vote, but you will eventually.
But you don't feel you just like second thoughts, because, I mean, it hasn't panned out as easily as some people said it would, has it?
Well, I want to leave the European Union, so if we are once again in control of our own affairs, then I'm going to be satisfied with the result. I don't like May's deal, and I don't think that we're in a satisfactory position 2 years after the vote. But what I do strongly believe is that a second referendum, I mean, it makes no sense. It wouldn't be conclusive. It would just be more divisive.
Why do you want to leave? Do you just not like them very much?
It's not about that at all. I think the United Kingdom will always be a European country, but I don't think we need to be in political union with the countries of Europe. I think we can trade with them. I think we can have a liberal immigration policy with them.
We might not be able to trade with them if we leave with no deal.
Well, WTO trade agreements, you have terms that are agreed on by countries all across the world. And once again, after we leave the EU, Britain will have a seat at the WTO. It's not no deal. It's the terms of the World Trade Organization.
What do you say to that?
Well, I would just say to that I think that, as you've said, you're not a fan of May's deal and you would favour no deal, but there is no majority in Parliament for no deal. In fact, I think that, as we're going to see, hopefully today, Parliament will stop no deal.
If we're still going to be in Europe, you know, we can't change the geography. We're going to continue to cooperate with each other. We just won't be dictated to from Brussels.
But that I think is the fundamental problem with this deal or with Brexit, is that I think with May's deal, it's the biggest ceding of sovereignty that this country will ever see. And I think you just have to understand sovereignty for what it is. Being in the European Union, in my opinion, makes us more sovereign.
Well, how does it make us more sovereign when they effectively make so many of our laws, according to the House of Commons Library, over 50% of our laws?
Because you have a seat at the table in how those laws are created. You have a chance to shape our power on the national stage.
But if you don't think that May's deal delivers on the referendum result, then surely what you would like is for a deal that does deliver, not for a referendum that tries to subvert the whole vote entirely.
No, because as I've said, I do not think that there is a deal which is better than the current deal that we have in the European Union.
But you made that argument in 2016 and you lost the vote.
Which is why I think it is democratic to have a people's vote. Because as you've seen we did a massive poll with 25,000 people, which is the biggest poll of attitudes to Brexit after the referendum. And we've seen a clear shift towards that of Remain.
I mean,
especially
we know that the older you were, the more likely you were to vote to leave. And Jeremy Paxman suggested that perhaps the over 67, T67, should have the vote taken away. Do you think that would be
I of course don't agree with that. I think that you should absolutely, the fundamental principle of our democracy is one person.
It's your future, though. It's
vote.
not necessarily someone
Well, it's all
who's
of our
67's future.
Well, it is definitely also the future of the 2 million people who didn't have the vote in 2016, which is why I think it's important to give them a say. But I'm absolutely not in a campaign to say that older people should have less of a say in our democracy, but I do think that everybody should have an equal say in our democracy. And in our democracy, you have the chance to continue to debate these issues as they progress. And as we've seen new facts come to light, we've seen promises that can't be kept because the problem is with Brexit itself.
Well,
you see, therefore, that a people's vote is the only route. And I think it's absolutely OK for myself and for other young people to campaign to that end.
How is the problem with Brexit, though, when you've had a Prime Minister over these last 2 years and you've had a Parliament over these last few years filled, as you said, with MPs that have tried to delay, frustrate, manipulate the vote? It's not now for them to say, oh, Brexit is the problem. The problem is that they've tried to manipulate the vote. I think in this country, we hold the debate and we hold the vote.
But
we can't just chop
we
and
held
change
the
on the
debate, we had a
decision based on
government who
opinion polls.
negotiated, and now you're saying you don't like the deal. I mean, it is a deal to leave.
I don't think the deal delivers on the vote, but also, to pick up on a previous point, when MPs voted to trigger Article 50, they triggered a vote that would only end in us leaving the European Union. It was inherent in that if there was not a deal, then we would leave on WTO terms. It was in the triggering of Article 50.
Of course, if young people had voted in the same numbers, same percentage as older voters, this wouldn't have happened, would it?
Well, I think actually often we misinterpret the turnout of the original referendum. Actually, it was double what we originally thought it would be. And I think young people have learned...
older voters.
Yeah, sure. And I think there's a huge responsibility on campaigners like us and on politicians especially to speak to the concerns of young people and to let them know that they do have a vested interest and they should participate in our democracy. And I think one thing that young people have learned over the last 2 years is just how important these issues are and just how important it is to have their say. And I think we've seen that in the young people who led the hundreds of thousands through the street in Westminster a few months ago to call for a people's vote. I think we now know that they would definitely have their voice say on this issue, which they care so passionately about.
Second chance, perhaps. Thank you both very much indeed.